we need to talk about Arcane. Hey guys, it's the Pink King here. Arcane. At this point, do I need to say anything? Arcane has become one of, if not the most talked about bit of animation and television in the last decade for its revolutionary animation, its heartbreaking and impactful writing, and the fact that something so golden came from something so not that. So yeah, we need to talk about Arcane because there's been something about this show, this enigma, that I'm surprised very few people are actually talking about. Something that goes way beyond this series alone. But I hear you ask, what could I be referring to? Everyone and their mama has said everything that needs to be said about Arcane. What could I possibly have to add? Well, if you were just patient, you annoying little... Allow me to explain. You see, Arcane Season 2 is being released at the moment, with Act 1 being released last Saturday and Act 2 coming this Saturday. And you know what? They've done it again. So far, Season 2 has been a massive success, with incredibly well-written characters, stories, not to mention how much of an emotional roller coaster these characters are. And of course, the kiss.
Yes! 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 No! 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 Balls!
You see, an emotional roller coaster. Overall, it's still a solid 10 out of 10 series. However, something that I feel needs to be talked about with this series is the animation industry as a whole, and why Arcane as a series is living proof that there's a much better way of making movies and shows than what we are currently doing right now. Now, when I say better way, I'm referring to both the process it took to make it and the respect given to it. Let's start with what it takes to make such a masterpiece. Too many animated projects, especially in today's climate, are now suffering from unfair and unjust treatment behind the scenes, to a point that the very wizards who managed to create the impossible for us to enjoy are the ones who have to suffer the consequences outside of their control. Take the very recent layoffs from Pixar and DreamWorks. Despite both studios having released quite a few well-made movies and even created some incredible stuff that made a profit, hard-working artists and animators were laid off, with Pixar being far more worse in this case, as despite Inside Out 2 being the biggest movie of the year with over $1 billion in revenue, about 175 employees, or around 14% of their workforce, were let go in order to save money and cut costs from Disney. Now, I don't need to tell you how incredibly scummy that is as a whole. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But what makes it worse is the fact that the team behind Inside Out 2 also had terrible working conditions and ungodly hours to make it all even worse. And it's not only with Pixar and Disney, even with gems like Across the Spider-Verse had atrocious working conditions for the hard-working artists who were tasked to not only create stuff never before done, but to do that again in less than a year to meet the March 2024 release date before it got rightfully delayed. Now, how does this link back to Arcane? Well, despite all of these projects really being masterful creations of animation, only one of them was able to keep everything together. That being Arcane. How did it do this, you ask? Well, it's simple really. Time. The time in between Season 1 of Arcane and Season 2 was around 3 years. A very healthy time to create anything. Not to mention, it was easier for them to do it this time as they already had laid the blueprint before with Season 1. Netflix understood that if this was going to work, this massive risk was going to work, it needed as much time as possible to not only be great but fair to the creators, a luxury that a lot of other studios can't even fathom, as they give ridiculous timeframes and release dates. and thus resulting in more crunch time and less money being rightfully paid to these hard-working artists. Companies like this believe that in order to maintain success, you have to constantly be pumping everything out as fast as possible, when in reality, that's not true. Like with Arcane, despite it being 3 years later since Season 1, it still holds the same, if not more success than the first one ever did. And even with other shows like a familiar face of mine, Hazbin Hotel as an example, that show was in development limbo for a solid 5 years before finally being released on Amazon and then dominating the scene, despite everything it had going against it with the controversies, the toxic fandom, and the inevitable hate bandwagon. It's projects like these that prove you don't need to rush stuff and overwork your artists, because giving your artists fair times and conditions, while yes, may take longer, it will only help the product in the end, rather than hurt it. We unfortunately live in an era of incredible works of art that get completely disrespected for one reason or another, whether it be poor marketing, poor conditions, or even replacing hard workers with AI. This industry has become an incredibly toxic and unsafe environment for aspiring artists. And Netflix themselves, as much as I've given them credit today, they are not totally innocent of this either, considering the amount of animation projects they make with one season and then cancel directly after. As much crap as I've given shows like Hell of a Boss and Hazbin Hotel, at least they treat their staff right. At least they treat their artists with some respect. And it says a lot more that people want to work independently in indie animations rather than with studios anymore. Why, you ask? It's because they're getting treated far better out there than they are with them. Arcane is proof that we as an industry can do better and get better. And it's only going to be when these studios wake the fuck up and learn that these people deserve better, because they give them everything that they're profiting off. But what do you guys think? Am I wrong in my assessment somehow? Is there anything I might have missed? Let me know in the comments. I read all of your guys' comments, so be sure to discuss your thoughts with me in there. I'm very interested to see what you guys have to say on this. Also, if you enjoyed the video and you want more content just like this where I talk about animation, then subscribe. Doing that tells me you enjoy this content and want more stuff just like this. And subscribing right now not only tells me that, but it shows me that you want more stuff and I can make it a lot more faster for you guys. So, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and with that, peeps, I will see you all next time.